And welcome back to Morning Talk. You were listening to KSVC 980 AM and 100.5 FM. Porter Huntsman and Dylan Nielsen alongside with you this morning, and it is time now for our Valley Viewpoint interview. And this morning we are joined by Jason Walton, candidate for U.S. Senate. And Jason, we appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Thank you. Good morning, Dylan and Porter. It's good to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you on. Kind of get to know you and your campaign a little bit better. So first off, why don't you talk about your mentorship with young Utahns?
Yeah, that's just been a great privilege of mine, actually. I've been mentoring Utahns for the past 25 years plus. I own pest control companies, so I started them out of my garage about 25 years ago, and then we just bootstrapped it into a company that's reached across the nation. And since that time, I've been had the opportunity to mentor thousands of actually young Utahns. And maybe one of the greatest privileges is in mentoring them in pursuit of their own American dream to be entrepreneurs. I know we've mentored at least a couple hundred in that way, but the mentorship really focuses on not just how to learn how to come up with a strategy and manage a budget, manage a payroll, but it all starts with teaching the concept of principle-centered living and principle-centered leadership. And when we define our success by our ability to make and keep commitments that show we value true and eternal principles, then everything works out a lot better.
All right. So I know you had a meet and greet in St. George last week. Tell us a little bit about that.
That was outstanding. I'm originally from Monticello, so every time I have the opportunity to get down to southern Utah, it's the salt of the earth. In fact, if we could just duplicate the people of southern Utah around the nation, I think it would solve all of our problems. I'll tell you one thing that was concerning when I was there is I had it's even hard to talk about. I have a letter with me right now, and it was given to me by a man down there, and he laments about how his 11-year-old daughter was assaulted by an illegal immigrant, and I just think it's deeply, deeply sad.
So let's get to know you a little bit more and talk about your campaign points. First off, let's talk about that border security. That's been a big issue throughout the country. It's been on the minds of a lot of people. Your stance on that and what you would do if you were to make it to the Senate.
Well, I mean, first off, we need to do Senate leadership, but what can I do? Well, we can stand with electing Donald Trump to be the next president of the United States. This problem is fairly easy to solve. You just need to immediately end the catch and release nonsense and implement the stay in Mexico policy. I've been down to the border and I've seen it firsthand, and it appears definitely like Joe Biden and the Democrats actually have like a business relationship with the cartels. The cartels are able to have the market of human trafficking go up 10, 11-fold. Plus, because I was in the Tucson sector, there's over 3,000 illegal immigrants per day. And the Border Patrol agents have to collect those immigrants and then drive them over 2 hours into Tucson to process them. And by process them, I mean give them a bed, tell them that they'll be called in sometime before 2032, give them some money and a plane ticket so they can come to Richfield or Delta or a place near you. And then the border's wide open. And I was there with a man named Art Dequeto of the American Border Patrol Union, and he showed me how the cartels bring in the fentanyl and the meth and the heroin when the Border Patrol agents are gone processing. It's easy for them to do it. They bring it in bulk, and it's costing Utahns lives on the regular. It's just really sad, and it can just be changed simply by ending catch and release and then implementing the stay in Mexico policy. It's the same policy that President Trump already had in place. And I say it's a business relationship for the Democrats because Chuck Schumer introduces a bill in the Senate every year, and it has three things in it. The first one here he got, and that's to implement catch and release. And the second one is to give every illegal immigrant an ID card. And the third one is to give them all the right to vote. And so near as I can tell, the cartels are getting rich from human trafficking and drugs. and the Biden administration and the Democrats are buying votes.
So you mentioned Chuck Schumer, who is, of course, a career politician. And one of the things I've got here that I want to talk about is big government. So tell us how you in the Senate would help deal with big government issues.
Well, first of all, you have to start voting no on these spending bills. I mean, the government's not a business. It taxes people. We, the people, we're the ones who are working. We're the ones who take the risks through our blood, sweat, and tears. And then politicians seem to find a way to reach into our wallets and use that money to enrich themselves politically. That's really what it comes down to. And that usually leads to investing in these bloated big government programs, a lot of which I think we all know are unconstitutional to begin with, but it's also just bloated spending. It gets into crony capitalism. And the first thing you do is you start implementing budget cuts to every department across the board. And that's a good place to start.
Now, when it comes to inflation, that's been another hot topic over the last couple of years as we've seen prices of everyday items continue to go up and up and up. So your thoughts on what can be done when it comes to, I guess, overspending leading to inflation?
Well, it's the same thing. You implement budget cuts to every department. You stop printing money. You implement a balanced budget amendment and start having some fiscal responsibility. It just looks like our politicians are, again, just committed to really just strap our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren with debt. And it's really sad. It's cruel. But I think that we get the right people in the Senate. I think that as we start electing more business leaders into the Senate who know something about budgeting, that we can get this under control. But also things like the Inflationary Reduction Act. That's just an act actually how to increase inflation. I mean, you're taking money, instead of letting the market determine that fossil fuels is the best resource, which it is. So instead you have this crony capitalism, which I also call crony climate capitalism. And there's this incentive by giving these tax breaks and tax credits to all these green new ideas. And I say green in parentheses, they're not green. And you're basically causing inflation by having your own government increase energy prices. And then the sadistic part is then they actually title the act to increase inflation. They title it the Inflation Reduction Act. It's madness.
So another issue you wanted to talk about this morning, again, Second Amendment. That is obviously, here in central Utah, something that's on a lot of people's minds as we've seen Second Amendment sanctuaries popping up throughout the state. So your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, that's an easy one. It's hard to pass an amendment. You have to have 2/3 of each house of Congress vote for it, and then 3/4 of the states have to ratify it. And it says very clearly, shall not be infringed. Shall not be infringed. And that was put into place because our founding fathers knew that we needed to have weapons to defend ourselves. And that hasn't changed. It's as important today as it was then. I remember being back in Monticello one time when some buddies of mine, we were 12, 13 years old, we were riding around on these 3-wheelers and 4-wheelers, and the police came in on both sides of us. And we also had, each one of us had a rifle, 22s. We were out having some fun. And these policemen came out and came to each one of us and said, hey, wait a minute. You guys can't be on 4-wheelers. And so, that everywhere could be like Monticello.
Right. So tell us a little bit about foreign policy issues. Obviously, this is a big deal right now. The House just recently voted for a new foreign aid spending package just this last week. So tell us a little bit about your foreign policy stance there, as well as your stance on current military issues.
Well, clearly, we don't have the money to spend. We're $34 trillion in debt. And then, obviously, it's so wrong that you're going to go protect the borders in other nations before you protect your own border. I think Americans and Utahns know that that's absolute nonsense. And once again, it's politicians just trying to enrich themselves politically. So, I mean, this border bill, that's most of our towns, small towns in Utah we're from, this bill is more money than those towns have paid since they were founded by everybody in the town. and that's not a good use of. It's not a good use of money. More specifically, in Ukraine, I think we all know that Putin is in check. I think he's dangerous. There's no doubt. But I think it's a wise thing to actually make Europe and force them to the table to pay more. Not only pay more into NATO, but also just do more. The whole European Union, and also with China. I think it's a really bad idea to put yourself in a position where you're going to have a two-front economic war. So I think Putin is held in check. If he invades a NATO country, we're duty-bound to intervene, which we would and should, and I stand by that. But there's other ways you can support your allies other than giving them money. You can give them military intelligence. You can deploy your troops and assets in the region, and you can give warnings, which is what I think we should do to China right now. You let them know that we don't want to fight a two-front economic war, so we're not funding Ukraine, but we are Taiwan's ally, and then give them a pretty stern warning: don't do it. Don't invade China. Now, if President Biden said that to them, I think they'd probably invade by 2:00 in the afternoon. But if President Trump said that to them, then I think that you'd find a different outcome. They wouldn't have the courage to do it.
All right. So we're running pretty short on time, and obviously it's convention week. The Republican convention is coming up this weekend, and you're in a pretty packed race here. Obviously, you've got big names for this Senate race, like John Curtis and Brad Wilson. So if you could take 30 seconds and give us a little bit of a rundown, why should somebody vote for you?
Well, we do have great candidates. Utah's been very fortunate, and I've really enjoyed getting to know the people in the race. But I think we all know that the problems we have in America right now and in Utah, they're caused by politicians. And I promise you, I think we all know it and can feel it, that the solution is not another politician. It isn't. So politicians, they don't know how to actually do the right thing because it's the right thing to do without enriching themselves politically. We need more business leaders like Donald Trump and myself, people who are patriots, who are literally getting into this race for no other reason than realizing that some responsible business person needs to come in and set the budget and the financial affairs of this country right. And there's no hooks in me. I don't owe political favors to anyone. The commitments that I've made are to my wife, to my family, and to God. And if the people of Utah will have me, it'd be quite an honor to serve as a senator from the state of Utah.
Once again, joined this morning by Jason Walton, candidate for U.S. Senate. We appreciate you taking the time to join us this morning. If someone wants to know more about you or your campaign, where's the best place to find more information?
Walton for Senate. Walton, FOR Senate, and that's .com. It's Instagram, and it's also on X or Twitter.
All right. Well, again, we appreciate you taking the time to join us this morning.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun.
That's going to do it for our Valley Viewpoint interview for today here on KSVC, 980 AM, 100.5 FM. We're going to join Fox News at Now Live in Progress.